Hey friends, it's your friend T. I've got another interview, this time around the carnivore diet, and I want to introduce you to my friend Timothy. Timothy at one time was as big as 365 pounds. Take a look at this picture. And through years of self-experimenting on himself with different types of fasting and juice fast and different diets, 1 year ago in I guess that would be around January of 2022, he found the carnivore diet, and it totally was a game changer for him. Interesting interview. We kind of go all over the place talking about mindset and who we might think we could become versus who we actually become by losing 100 weight, how transformational losing 100 pounds is, what to do on how to start your weight loss journey, how alcohol and other addictions play into the weight loss process, breaking the cycle of addiction. Anyway, after a year of doing the carnivore diet, take a look at this picture. This is him at 200 pounds, okay? 200 pounds. So through a lot of trial and error, he went up and down, up and down, up and down. And his highest was 365, and then he lost 100 pounds in 1 year doing the carnivore diet. So I hope this inspires you, and what I really want you to think about is if you're sitting there and you're being a YouTube junkie, like sometimes happens to all of us, and scrolling and you're watching these people, I just want to give you a message of hope. Time is going to go forward. Time is marching forward. And the what you need to do, you probably already know. You probably already know what foods work for you and don't work for you. And what you really need is a mindset shift that you can do it. Not that you will do something, but that today, right now, if you're eating food that you know you shouldn't eat, right now while you watch this interview, go throw it in the trash. Start right now. The elevator can stop now. My message as I go on about this is that the elevator is easy and it only goes down. The stairs are hard, but they bring you up, right? In my metaphor, the stairs don't go down. They only go up, and the elevator only goes down. So get off the elevator, throw the crappy food away, start a 72-hour fast while you're doing this. This interview is about an hour long. That'll get you 1 hour into it. Make a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, sit back, relax. And I want you to listen to my friend Timothy. Wishing you the best. Know that I believe in you, even if you don't believe in yourself. Take a step with me, and let's get this done in 2023.
As I was saying, my wife and I, we discovered this thing in '93, this cabbage soup diet, and we lost quite a bit of weight off of it really, really quickly. We were younger, and we married quite late. We were in our 30s, early 30s when we got married, and the result was we were introduced to two primary things in dieting that are reoccurring to most people who diet, and that is one, plateaus, and two, cycling, where you lose your weight and it'll come back always more, or you lose your weight, it'll come back more, or you'll get to the place where you're not losing any weight anymore, and it can be really, really frustrating. And I'm a person who, as an individual, I am completely driven by curiosity. I have a motto. It says, satisfaction killed the cat, curiosity brought it back. And if I have a choice between eating and solving a question, I generally will solve the question before I'll eat. My wife kind of drives my wife a little crazy. So once this started, I started learning about dieting, and eventually we went to Atkins in '98, and I lost a lot of weight on Atkins. But then it all came back. It always comes back, and it always comes back worse. Then we discovered something called the PRISM diet, which was basically portion control. I lost weight on portion control, but it all came back. And then I did Nutrisystem and lost weight, and it all came back. And my weight really wasn't compared to where it eventually ended up, which was by 2012, I was at 365 pounds by 2012. But I'm not going to attribute that to the dieting cycle at all. I'm going to contribute that to some bad doctoring. The story on how I'm sitting right around 200 right now. Since the beginning of 2022, I was at 300 pounds. I'm down at 200 now, and I started Carnivore in 2022. And
wow. Say that again. Say that again, real quick. So you were 365 in 2012, and all the way up to 2020. So it took you a while. You got down to 300. You said, right?
Yeah, I got
what
down
year?
I was doing the cycling thing all over again.
Uh-huh.
Right. This time I was getting more extreme in my approach. So, for example, in 2017, the summer of 2017, I did a 111-day juice fast.
Wow.
And I was just juice. I did it for the entire summer. I did it basically from Memorial Day to Labor Day, before Memorial Day to Labor Day. And I lost a lot of weight. I dropped from 325 at that time to 241.
Wow.
But it all came back.
Yeah.
And what was bad about this, I discovered some positive things to the juice fast. One is I learned the power of fasting. I discovered fasting.
Yeah.
I've kept every year. At January, my wife and I do a fast. We started off this year with a fast. I did an 8-day fast this year. Starting off the year now, my wife and I are moving into an every other day, one meal a day, every other day fast. It seems to be working really well.
I love it. And do you consider caloric intake fasting, or are you strictly on a water electrolyte type fast now that you're doing fasting?
Total water electrolyte. A little bit of coffee with some salt. I use Redmond's salt. And when I'm hungry in the evening, usually, because over the course of this last year, not only did I implement Carnivore, but I also implemented one meal a day.
Gotcha.
So I've gotten in the one meal a day habit. My body likes that. It settles in somewhere between 5 and 8 o'clock. It wants something to eat, generally, as a rule. I try to push it back, but it just seems to always fall in that groove, so I just go with it right now.
So can I? I'm interrupting your story. I love this story, but I'm curious before we jump into the Carnivore part of it, which is where the success really took hold. Can you speak to, because I think some of the people that would be of interest, including myself, have done the same thing and are overweight right now or obese, right?
Right.
How much of that cycling and of that trying, speak to the mindset, like how much mental damage might not be the right word, but how did you stay in the fight through all of that, and how was your state of mind through that? Can you speak to that a little bit?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. Couple things. One, this may be a silly thing, but when I was a child, my mother, she was a very proper Southern young lady. She was from East Texas. She came from upper echelon of Southern society. My mother did, and she passed away in '70. And so, I always still revere back to my mother. I have a lot of respect for my mother. And one of her biggest pet peeves was not running upstairs. It was completely improper to run upstairs. Well, me being a typical young child, Mom, don't run up the stairs. I had to run up the stairs. To this day, I'm 62 years old. To this day, I still love running up the stairs. And I got to a point where I couldn't run up the stairs anymore, and I hated it. And then that's just a small thing, but then I would look in the mirror, and I did not recognize the person that I knew to be. And I hated it. And eventually, and that's what triggered the juice fast, was I just did that out of sheer anger. I was so mad at myself because I could not get a handle on this. I knew other people who had, and I was just furious, and that fueled me. I was not the most pleasant person to be around during the juice fast, because not only was I driven by anger to stick it through, but the juice fast did so many goofy things to my moods. There were just times my wife couldn't stand to be around me because it was like I was unpredictable.
Do you think the juice fast was still a ketogenic type diet? Were you taking enough calories? It was not.
Calories. It's one of the things I've done through the course of my studies is I've just completely removed the concept of calories from my thinking. It's all about nutrition. It's about food density now.
Gotcha.
And
So
calories don't make any sense to me. Getting back to your point about juice, one of the biggest mistakes I made during juice fasting was I did not understand the concept of how carbohydrates work with insulin. And that didn't happen until after the juice fast. I was connected with Jason Fung's books, The Obesity and the Diabetes Code, of course.
Great books.
And then I started watching Dr. What's his name? He's out of UC Berkeley. He's really anti-sugar. I started watching his videos.
That's probably Dr. Lustig.
Yeah, Dr. Lustig. Watched a lot of his stuff, and and all those people. Started watching that stuff, and I got clued in to what carbohydrates did, and I saw the mistake out of the juice fast, because one of the things that evolved out of the juice fast was binging. Because I stayed in this for 111 days. I stayed in this perpetual state of feeling famished. And I couldn't smell food. I remember one time I went to the fair during the course of the summer, and the worst thing that you could ever smell when you're hungry like this is grilled onions on a grill. It's like death. Why do we need an army on the North Korea border? All we have to do with those people is just start opening up hamburger stands and grill onions and blow the smoke their way and just bring them to their knees, because I know what it was doing to me, right?
Sure.
And so, anyway, the juice. So what would happen when I started eating again, because the carbs were doing what they were doing, I was eating and I was never getting the satisfaction of being full. And I would eat to the point to where I would throw up and still want to eat more. And at least 2 times it put me in the hospital.
Wow.
It was horrible. I had never experienced it like anything like that. And so the first time I had a carnivore meal, which was back in January of last year, I had a full carnivore. I had a little piece of steak, a couple bratwursts, and that was it for dinner. And I'd been fasting for like 20 some odd days. And I ate that, and I had felt full. I felt satiation to the point I had never felt it before. It was like a brand new sensation for me. I'd never experienced it. And that right there sold me on the carnivore diet, because I actually could eat and had this sense of I've done. I don't have to eat anymore, and I don't have to eat again until I'm ready to. And that invoked this really wonderful habit now. I eat when I'm hungry, and I stop when I'm full, which it seems like a no-brainer, but carbs for me just kill me. I can't have them. I just can't have them.
You know, it's funny. Can I call you Tim or Timothy?
Timothy would be fine.
Yeah, Timothy. So you invoked Lustig. Lustig has he had a book, Hacking of the American Mind, which is a great read. But he talks the difference between dopamine and serotonin, and it reminded me of what you just said. That he talks about serotonin driving the idea that I'm full and I have enough, where dopamine, which would probably be triggered more by carbs, is like, I like this and I want more. And I think you and I are the same. I've been experimenting. It's funny. I'd love to talk to you about. You're on the other side of it all now, and I found carnivore probably about a year and a half. I looked up the first time and I went 30. I just told my wife, I was like, I got to do this thing. I'm going to do it. And I was already keto, right? And but the carbohydrates in keto, even the greens and things like that, would trigger me into fruit. Next thing you know, I'm like, well, that grape on that meat tray at someone's house is fine. Next thing you know, I'm gobbling a bunch of grapes and then strawberries, and then I'm looking for ice cream, right?
My transitional food was Tootsie Rolls.
Tootsie Rolls. Yeah.
It's like, I need a grape. What's a grape? Tootsie Rolls are a little bit, they last in your mouth a little bit longer. So
yeah.
The next thing you know, it's whole pumpkin pies.
Exactly. So talk to about what about that triggering, or man, I just lost my train of thought there. So my point is, I told my wife, hey, 30 days carnivore, just bear with me, and she was cool with it, and I just did it, and man, I felt like I've never felt before, as far as just the satiation you're talking about, right?
Oh, yeah.
Weight started just kind of coming off. I started feeling good, and then I broke because, I hate to say society or whatever, or you're just like, well, you know, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Why does it have to be so all or nothing, do you think?
I'm not sure, because my approach has been a little different on that. I don't really care what society thinks.
Mm-hmm.
I never have. It's always been a big bugaboo for me. When I was a little kid, we were studying Christopher Columbus when I was in like 6th grade. And it dawned on me that it was entirely possible for one man to be right and the entire world to be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, it's, you know, to be more metaphorical about it, it's okay to set sail against the tide of public opinion, because I'm not going to fall off the edge of the earth, and I'm not going to be eaten by sea monsters. I just want to make sure I have all the facts, because I may end up somewhere I didn't think.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, which is what happened. So that's always been my mindset. So when it comes to those kinds of things, and they can be it still can be a little tough, because, you know, you go out, you have a wedding,
yeah,
you want to imbibe, and there's nothing there to eat. Well, there's nothing there to eat. That's just, yeah. I've just adopted that as a long-term approach anyway. One of the cool things about developing the ability to fast is when I hit those places where I've got to socialize, it's not that hard to skip.
Yes.
I just go right into fasting mindset, and it's like, okay, well, I'm fasting right now. It's not a big deal.
Yeah,
that's how I do it.
I tend to think about it like I've never been a smoker. I've never had I mean, maybe I took a puff off a cigarette when I was in high school or something, but I never really was a smoker. And you know, it's like going to the wedding, let's say. I guess that's the fasting mindset. It's just like all the stuff around me I don't consider food, basically is how I put myself. It's like, it would be like being in a room full of cigarettes. It's like there's no temptation at all, because I don't smoke, you know. Is that what you're talking about, the fasting mindset, you think?
It is kind of, because I was a smoker. I started smoking when I was 11, because this was, you know, the 70s, late 60s, early 70s. I could do that.
Mm-hmm.
Any kid can go in the store and buy cigarettes in those days. And I was 11, but I quit when I was 28. And by the time I quit, I was at 3 packs a day.
Wow.
I only weighed 135 pounds. You want to talk about the best weight loss system I ever developed was coffee and cigarettes, man. You will kill your weight so fast. It is great.
Uh-huh.
You won't be really healthy when you're done, and you'll feel like miserable, you know, totally miserable, but it's pretty bad. So I learned a few things about developing habits as a result of quitting smoking. So I quit cold turkey.
Man, you quit cigarettes cold turkey, huh?
Yeah, and here's what the amazing thing was. It took 4 days to get through the nicotine aspect of the getting rid of tobacco usage like that.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started fasting, you would go what we call keto flu. It's really not keto flu. It's carbohydrate withdrawal. I noticed it was almost identical to quitting smoking.
Mm-hmm.
The same effects. It was the same exact emotional feelings and everything. It was just like quitting smoking. And then when I read in Dr. Jason Fung that one of the reasons why the American tobacco companies were able to make cigarettes more addictive was by curing the sugar. Whoa, light bulbs went off.
Yep.
That makes so much sense.
I'm convinced on that case, whether it's cigarettes or alcohol. You know, I'm a big proponent of not drinking alcohol, especially if you're trying to get your health back, and processed foods. Is that it's basically we have to break the cycle of addiction, and all of them are triggering addictive. We don't always think of it that way, because addiction is a very controversial topic, if you will. It's much like nutrition and everything else, but it's still the same cycle of you stop for a while, and then you think you're okay, and then the substance is the problem. The smoking cigarettes are addictive, and if you expose yourself to them, you can't be like, oh, I'm healed and now I can smoke a pack a day and I'll be fine. Maybe some people are, but I think carbohydrates fall in that, alcohol falls in that, cigarettes fall into that, and all the rest.
I totally agree. I mean, my experience was in order to quit smoking, I had to make the mental commitment, sacrificial commitment that I did not like what I had come to. I did not like what it was doing to me, and I was never ever going to do it again. And I could not come near it. I had to just totally put it away. And I've had to take that approach and apply it to Carnivore. I'm not going to play this game. I'm not going to. Especially because of the things I learned through the binging. Because the binging was the direct result of really going from low carb back to a standard carbohydrate diet. And once I crossed the threshold, it took me over, and I did not like that. So
let's talk about the binge cycle, because I think that that is something that happens. Like I watch. This is just my general opinion in the dieting space, especially in the low carb world, is that you have a lot of people that have made it to the other side and are sharing their experiences, and then you have a lot of people. There's a lot more people that are looking, and when they fail, I think that the formula is they think, well, I'm eating the wrong food, or I shouldn't have this avocado, or I shouldn't have that, and they're looking to fix something instead of their mindset of like and they wind up being triggered, and they're in that fast binge cycle versus breaking that model, and they think it's like a trick or something, right? Can you speak to that a little bit, maybe?
Well, yeah, it's like I said, the key to any transition is, and this is kind of a no-brainer, but the key to any transition like this is a concept called self-honesty. I mean, the ultimate expression of love of truth is self-honesty. Because that's the place where people really deal with things the most. One of the most frustrating things about carnivore diet is the fact that people have been so conditioned to believe that you have to have healthy fruits and vegetables, and that anything out of that paradigm is somehow evil. And it's an absolute lie. And when people have to attack that lie, they eventually have to deal with themselves. Yeah. And that's the toughest pill to swallow is always the truth.
Gotcha.
And that's the mindset. You have to love truths enough to say, hey, this is not working for me. It's okay to admit it and go, well, let's go find something that does. Things as a dad, we have responsibilities to make sure that we raise up our kids so they become. I don't raise children. I raise adults. I want them to be adults moving forward, because that's where they're going to spend the most of their life. But one of the things I really imparted to my kids was failure is not the enemy of your success. Is an integral part of it. It's an important ingredient. You have to go through these things to find out what's working and what doesn't. But the thing that makes it work is self-honesty. You got to be able to say, this doesn't work, this does, let's go here. And so my mindset is this: if this works, why would I want to go back here? If I don't like hangovers, and I know drinking causes hangovers, which is one of the reasons why I don't like to drink. I don't like hangovers. So to eradicate hangovers, what do I have to do?
Don't drink.
Don't drink. It's not that tough.
That's right. Yeah. But yeah. And when people relapse, whether it be with carbs, alcohol, or cigarettes, it basically it resets the cycle, and you've got to start again to break that. Let's go into a little bit of the nitty gritty on the how of your carnivore.
I'm going to say how I got there is a scary story.
Yeah, let's hear that. Let's hear that.
This is scary. Okay. I have really bad sleep apnea. I mean, really bad sleep apnea, and it's something that I developed even when I was thin. And I didn't know it. I had no clue. All I know is in the middle of the night, maybe several times a night, I would wake up with hot flashes. That's all we ever knew. My wife and I, that's all we ever knew. There were times during the day I would have hot flashes, and I didn't know why. We thought it was a food allergy. We didn't know what it was. So finally in 2006, I woke up in the middle of the night and I thought I was having a heart attack. I was about 225 at this time.
Okay.
And so I had a job. I'm an audio engineer by trade. I was working for a multi-million-dollar theater production, and my producer was very protective of me. He liked me. He liked the way I did my job. He liked my commitment, that kind of thing. So he made me go to his doctor. which was, I was living in Palm Springs at the time. I had one of the best doctors in Palm Springs. When you think about Palm Springs, California, they've got good doctors there because there's very, very rich old people that live there, right? Movie stars and the like. So there's a great medical community there. He put me on SSRIs. And rather than, I still remember, I had no idea what was going on. All I know was having these hot flashes. These were panic attacks, he says. You have GAD, which is a generalized anxiety disorder, and he put me on Lexapro and Ambien and a bunch of stuff, and the next thing I know, I'm on all these pills, and those actually work contrary to weight, so my weight started going up. And so for the next 5 years, I battled with these things. I changed different SSRIs, and all this, my weight just started ballooning, and we had no idea why, and not a single doctor would address it.
Wow.
I mean, by 2012, I went to the doctor. I'd gone back to school in 2008 for my advanced degree in my audio, and I went back to school. By 2012, I'm sitting at 365. I can't breathe. I'm in my doctor's office because I can't breathe. I have to have albuterol to breathe all the time.
Wow.
I can barely walk. The knee pain and the pain and my arthritis and everything. It's just, every time I listen to Carnivore stories, I go, yeah, I've been there, done that. There's not one I haven't heard that I haven't experienced in the extreme. And finally the VA says, have you ever had a sleep test? But I knew my problem was weight. I knew it was weight. And my doctor, I said, don't you think my problem's weight? So I'm going through CAT scans and X-rays and all this stuff. The medical bills, if I didn't have really, really good health insurance, the medical bills would have set me back huge amounts of money. And finally, I said, do you think it could be weight? He says, well, that's possible.
Timothy, how tall are you?
At the time I started, I was 5'11". I'm down to 5'9". I've lost a couple inches over the couple years.
Man, so 360 on 365 on a 5'11" frame. Wow, that's. I mean, so you probably should be around 175, 180, maybe something like that.
I set a goal of 160.
Yeah, 160. You okay?
I said, my most comfortable weight when I reflect. My most comfortable weight. I love one of the things I also like doing is I like doing long distance cycling. I mean, I like doing centuries.
Wow.
Which I was able to do in my 30s and my early 40s because my weight was in that area, 175, 180 maybe. My highest weight was really around during my century riding was right around 210. I could do that. It was a little laborious, but it was better at 175.
Yeah.
165 was great for riding long distance biking. I still do, and I live in Montana, so I mean, this is the greatest place in the world to ride a bike. Get hit by a pickup.
Yeah.
Or move. So I've had deer run out in front of my bike. They just, I don't know what it is about deer. They just want to be hit by things. So anyway, I was also working with VA at the time because I'm a vet, and my vet rep here in Montana said, have you ever had a sleep test? I said, no. And he sent me up for a sleep test, and I tested out. Severe sleep apnea is roughly 30 cycles an hour. And by a cycle, that means you fall asleep, you go to a place where you stop breathing, and then you wake up, and then you get this cycling going. And about 30 times an hour I was testing out at 135 times an hour. And I had been doing this for years.
Wow.
My body had learned a different way of surviving to where I was getting to snippets of sleep through the day while I was standing, which is what was causing the panic attacks when I was awake, because I would slip off to sleep, and then all of a sudden I'd wake up, and that's how I moved. It was just horrible. I didn't sleep at night because I was constantly waking up and falling asleep. And the first night I put my CPAP machine on, and I slept even 8 hours nonstop. It was like not eating. It was like having that carnivore meal. I'd never experienced it, and I hadn't experienced it so long. It was a brand new experience to me. It was amazing. And so it's a weird type of sleep apnea, in that when I fall asleep, I literally just stop breathing.
God.
It's amazing. My last bout with the binging thing, where I ended up in the hospital, I ended up with a hernia as a result.
Those are painful.
Oh yeah, it was one of those belly button hernias too. It was
Wow.
really bad.
Did you have surgery?
And,
Did you have surgery to
I, mean,
correct it?
I had surgery. I had surgery on that, and so I went in, and they put morphine. I hadn't slept in 24 hours, and I hadn't. I've been throwing up all night. I was really, really sick, and they put me on morphine. Of course, the morphine relaxed me, which made me go to sleep. Every 5 minutes they were waking me up. Don't stop, Gus. You got to breathe. Start breathing, because my because I had the CO2 measure on your arm, the oxygen measure, and I'd fall asleep and I'd stop breathing. I'd wake up, and that's when I really discovered what was going on was through that thing. And it was just I started. It was that year that I started the final fast that led me to Carnivore. Was after the hernia, but. So I had this thing going on, and I started losing weight after I started sleeping. So there's one of the things they'll tell you in the carnivore community and the keto community is you have to get a good night's sleep. I know that from personal experience because that was one of the things that was keeping me overweight. I just was not sleeping. And so I still am reliant. I don't have to use it as much as I did before. I still have to use it at night. I can fall asleep without it now, but I still wake up after 2 or 3 hours, and I have to put the CPAP machine on. And I wish it could go away, but I don't know why it doesn't. So anyway, because they put me all these medicines, he never once examined this initial doctor in Palm Springs, never looked for a sleep disorder. By the same token, I had, in the course of all that, I had herniated discs C5 and C6 in my neck during the course of all this, and so I was paralyzed on my head fell down. I got paralyzed on the right side of my body. His therapy was to put me in. His result was to put me in therapy, and they told me I needed to have surgery. I ended up having surgery. Had the disc rebuilt with a product that put out by LGI Spine, I think is the name of it, LDR Spine, and they literally built. So I have full. They didn't do fusion on my neck; they actually rebuilt it.
Interesting.
And so, but I became addicted to opioids.
Oh wow!
So, at 2008, I'm addicted to opioids. I'm on SSRIs. I'm taking all these sleep medications. I'm also on Xanax because I'm just a nervous wreck. And my weight's ballooning. My doctor's seeing that my weight's ballooning, so he's giving me an appetite suppressant and all this stuff. So finally I said, I'm done. So I said, I quit smoking after 17 years. I was 3 packs a day. I can get off of this too.
Yeah.
So I quit. And I was able to walk around as a human being for 4 days, and then after that, I was in bed for 2 weeks. It was just horrible. The worst experience of my life was because I chopped everything off, and I learned something very, very valuable about SSRIs. Do not quit them cold turkey. They will really screw up your head, and it did. I mean, when I was, as a teenager, I went in the Navy when I was 17, and one of the things you do not want to do with a 17-year-old is put him in the Navy where they have something called beer machines. And I learned to drink pretty good when I was 17, and I learned the concept of bed spins, and bed spins would make you turn your head like this. Yeah. When I got off all the drugs, my bed spins were like this.
Oh wow!
It was just, I couldn't drive. I could barely walk. I was so. I had to quit my job. I had a really killer gig, working for a multi-million-dollar theater, and I had to quit I couldn't do the job anymore. I couldn't handle the stress and the tension because it was a high-stress job.
And this was 2012-ish, somewhere in that.
This was 08.
08. Okay. Wow.
Yeah, and that's when I decided to go back to school. And so, but the doctor still was treating me with SSRIs on the opioid addiction. And so, I was his go-to for everything. And I'm a really firm proponent of the idea that general GPs should not prescribe psychotropes. They should not at all. They should be given a reference. Any more than they should do heart surgery. They should not be doing.
Yeah, they should be referring that out.
That totally. And because and now all this new information coming out. Well, maybe the SRIs aren't doing what they said they do, because maybe the brain chemistry balance isn't what we thought it was. All that information's coming out now that perhaps this whole thing was a lie to begin with. And it's just not surprising when it comes. I don't believe anything coming out of the medical. So when COVID hit, I was a natural skeptic. I go, I think I want to sit this one out. I'll watch. Anyway, so, but that's what attributed to the weight gain, and it was just as a mental experience. It was really, really hard. Trying to, because we have a traditional Christian family, and I'm the head of my household, and I'm trying to make sure that my kids have a positive example in their dad, because that's what dads do in that environment. And we don't have emotional support animals in our house. I am the emotional support animal, if you want to put it that way. And so I've got all these things I'm working through, and I still need to be the rock for my family. Man, it was tough.
Sure.
But, we made it, and unfortunately we got a bunch of momentum, so that when I was able to make that decision in 17, I'm done. This is going away. We will do whatever it takes. If that includes doing a 365-day fast and going total Gandhi on it, I'm going to go do that, right? And that includes what I read, what I study, what I listen to, what I apply. I mean, I went the whole gambit. I just put it all on the table and started tearing it apart. And as an audio engineer, one of my primary skills is troubleshooting, so I took those skills and I said, I'm going to use that as a means by which I figure out how to do my diet. And so I troubleshot it as if I were having a bad mic in the system.
Gotcha.
What's causing the problem? Where is it coming from? And when you have a problem in audio, and you have you're doing something and all something is breaking, the first question you must ask yourself for troubleshooting is, what did I just do? Because maybe you just hit a button accidentally, or somebody hit a button and something broke, or something's not doing what they're supposed to. Well, the same thing applies here. When I started ballooning and started going through this stuff, what did I just do? What just happened to cause me to go take from where I'm at, which I was fine, to where I'm at now, to where I'm not fine? What did I just do? And then, again, it takes a tremendous amount of self-honesty to be able to say, yeah, that was a bad decision. I should not have done that.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime I'm working with someone who's trying to quit alcohol and they're struggling, I always advise awareness, right? You have to be aware that there's something you want to change. And number two is the first step is just to be honest with yourself. You just have to start telling yourself the truth, as hard as that is.
As hard as it is.
It is just hard to face. And when I work and talk to people that ask me about losing weight, which I'm still on my journey, I'm like, take some pictures with your shirt off. Really look at yourself and just be aware of that. You've got a mountain to climb here, and we got some work to do, and start looking for some solutions. Sometimes it's hard to be honest because people are like, oh, you're fine. No one wants to tell you the truth. No one really wants.
Nobody does. And I don't get that. What is the value in keeping everybody fat and sick? I mean, I can understand it from the food perspective and from the medical perspective and even from the doctor's perspective. It makes for great golf. Okay, I get that. And but when it comes to the actual individual, I mean, we are quickly living in a society that's being governed by sociopaths. They care nothing about the effect of any of their decisions on what happens to somebody else. And the only way you can combat that is you have to, in your head, turn off the outside voices. At some point in time, you just have to listen to what your own experience tells you. I've developed the motto, I listen to my teachers, but I believe what I've learned from application. I don't believe what they tell me, but I will apply what they've told me. And then I will believe what I've learned through the application of those beliefs.
So you strike me as a very intelligent man. So how do you, once you make that pivot, how do you guard yourself against confirmation bias then, of like, once you're like, okay, this is what I'm going to do, like us carnivores, for example, and cherry picking only watching the YouTube channels or the stuff that tells us what we want to hear. Do you have any insight into that?
Well, I do listen to both sides, because initially when I come into a problem, I don't know what to do. until I do through some application, I start getting an indication of where I should go.
Mm-hmm.
I'll follow that out. And then once I've got consistent conclusions, then I go back and I listen, and I can hear. I don't listen for the disagreement. What I listen for is the experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I listen for, this person doesn't know what they're talking about. That was one of the things that drew me to your video, was the fact I could tell you knew what you were talking about when you gave your advice about not drinking over the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm listening for. I'm listening for people with experience in what they're applying. And so I actually enjoyed Josh Furman's book. You know, he's a big vegan, and I that kind of started. I actually did a whole summer based on his stuff of being vegan, and I went totally raw for summer. Which was
wow.
That was worse than the juice fast. I mean, because that was horrible.
I can't imagine my intestines. If every once in a while over the holidays I eat some broccoli, and it just not to be gross, but how gassy it makes me feel just a little bit of broccoli. It's like, oh my God.
I would go. I got to the point when I was doing the vegan stuff where I would go to the bathroom and I hated it. I'd have to go and I would panic because I know this is going to be painful and it could last all day. And there were times I actually had to call off work because I couldn't finish the cycle of going to the bathroom. And when I did, it was just miserable. I kept enemas in the bathroom.
Wow.
And it was just really, really bad. So one of the greatest things about Carnivore was I was able to go, number 2, and I went, that actually felt good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I didn't have to worry about bleeding. I didn't have to worry about straining my system when I went out, because I was always afraid I was going to just poop everything, including my stomach, right?
Yeah. So
it was that painful.
Let's get into the carnivore a little bit nitty-gritty on how you define carnivore for yourself. And when you first started carnivore, how did you define it? Meaning like pure beef, chicken, pork, what about dairy? And then how do you define carnivore? Where does it evolve? Can you give us a little perspective of, did that change at all?
Oh, absolutely. I learned one of the coolest things about the carnivore diet. And the carnivore diet is the only diet you can follow. And I don't mean follow in the sense of placing a list on the refrigerator and going, did I eat this? Did I did a checklist? That's not what I mean by follow. I mean by follow in the terms of it's leading me where I need to go.
Mm-hmm.
So my goal was, my initial idea of carnivore was 0 carbs. Absolute 0 carbs, which meant that's carnivore.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much. But I also learned within that confine that there were certain types of meats I couldn't eat. Pork.
Mm-hmm.
Pork makes me gain weight. I don't know what it is. My wife, she's a Southerner as well. She makes these great, wonderful pork steaks. And she can do it without the breading, and it still tastes really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really, almost Cracker Barrel-like, right?
Yeah.
And I just love them. But I gained 4 pounds after a meal. I didn't eat 4 pounds. Where did the 4 pounds come from?
Yeah.
And it would take me a whole week, and then eating every other day for a week to get the weight off. It didn't come off easy. It wasn't like coming off carb weight. This was tough.
Yep.
And so I had this year, the hardest part of the year for me is my birthday through the first of the year. My birthday's at the end of October, and then right at that you got Thanksgiving, you got Christmas, you got New Year's, and
Mm-hmm.
I always ballooned during that time. This year I was lucky; I only gained 8 pounds, and I was able to hold it off until we had ham for Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
And I gained 8 pounds after I ate the ham, and it's taken me 1 week of fasting. I'm already back down to where I was. I went right up.
I love it. I had the same thing. My birthday is October 24th, and I have the same thing every year. And this year I gained 5 pounds, and I did really. I chart my weight. I did really good. I would gain a couple, and I would have a couple of days fasting to kind of control, so I could go to parties and things. And I was not considering myself carnivore, although I was navigating through that. Basically, I had 3 things: Christmas Eve, Christmas Day night. I had 4 meals that were back to back, which I never eat that, and I had to suffer through that, and I ballooned up 5 pounds within 2 days.
Yeah, it's amazing. But one of the things I had to do was, with the carnivore, like I said, by following the initial carnivore diet, I learned there were certain things I couldn't do. One, my body started craving certain things, which was a different type of craving than craving sugar. When I would crave for sugar under carbs, they weren't cravings; they were obsessions.
Yes.
I would become obsessed with the food. My mind, I would wake up in the middle of the night doing things like when I was on the juice fast. One of the hardest things I had to quit was broccoli and cheese. I love broccoli and cheese, cooked in butter. Right? And so I would obsess about it. That's all I could. I had the smell in my nose. I'd have the taste in my mouth. It was all my mind. When I closed my eyes, it's what I would see. And I would be totally obsessed with it. And you fight obsession for so long, it becomes really, really hard. It makes life hard. And so the first thing I did after I came off the juice fast in 2017 was I went on a binge for broccoli and cheese. I just ate it for like solid 6 weeks. Every meal was broccoli and cheese, and until it went away. But those were the kind of cravings that I had. The carnivore cravings aren't the same. They're more like, this sounds good. This doesn't sound good. For a whole period of time, I stopped drinking coffee. It just stopped sounding good. I don't drink alcohol anymore in any way, shape, or form because it just flat doesn't sound good. There's just no appeal to it. Whereas a ribeye, that's a different story. That sounds
absolutely.
really good.
It does.
That really does. But it's a different type of craving than what were obsessions. Yeah. Ultimately.
I'm more of a New York strip kind of guy myself, but I'll still eat a good ribeye.
Well, we got a cool thing here in town. We have a chef store where we can buy restaurant quality food, and I buy ribeye by 20 pound blocks. Yeah. For like $7.25 a pound, and then I cut them up into steaks.
I love it. I love it.
Saves a lot of money. Yeah. So for $140, I can get 20 steaks.
That's awesome. Costco sells some of that here for us as well.
And they're $2 more a pound. So I'd rather have these.
Yeah. So dairy. Let's go through the carnivore. So especially with what was that guy? Paul Saladino kind of turned everything on its head with fruit and honey. But yes, I'm just going to rapid fire. Dairy. Do you do dairy at all?
I do minimal dairy. I like many carnivore guys. I do have a problem with cheese. Yes. And cheese does slow my weight loss down. It does. It does. Sometimes it can elevate me, and it's especially. I really love Swiss cheese. I don't know what it is about Swiss, especially on corned beef. I don't know why, but so cheese is a problem. I really try to limit it. And then one of the cool things about fasting that I like is if I find that I'm getting into a habit, fasting always breaks a habit. I can start over again. Yes. Smart. And I can develop new habits because it's about, when you're coming from a fasting state, you go, okay, it's 3 weeks to a new habit. So if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this for 3 weeks, and I'm going to implement a new habit by doing this. And I found that principle going back from fasting to carnivore and back and forth like that seems to work well for me.
That's smart. How do you feel about seafood?
Oh, I eat tons of seafood.
Good.
Now, I realize we shouldn't be eating this kind of seafood, and we shouldn't be eating that kind of seafood, but if you're going to start, if I have a choice between, farm-raised Atlantic cod or salmon, which I eat, versus free, or not eating it all and having Tootsie Rolls, I'm going to go with the cod. Yeah, absolutely. I'll go with the salmon every time. Yeah, it's going to be better for me. And then as I can afford it, and as my economics, I'm going to do the best I can do based on my economics at the time.
Absolutely. I hedge when I do my version of carnivore. I do a small meal in the morning because I work out and swim in the morning, and I like a little 9 o'clock. And I generally do sardines or a piece of salmon, and then I like to have beef in the evening. That's kind of my two. But I hedge with there's a thought process in the carnivore community that omega-3s are maybe not as important. You don't need as many as people might say. And I'm still kind of I'm ApoE4 positive, and it's like I'm like there's another side that I'm like I hedge and eat some omega-3s basically. I try to make sure I'm doing that.
I actually discovered sardines this year.
They're really good if you like sardines.
I know, they're amazing to me, and so But I've always been a fish eater. I've always liked fish. You know, when my kids were born, we weaned them on green beans and fish pretty much. So it was kind of cool. They'd be 6 years old. We'd go to the buffet, you know. Didn't matter what buffet they went to. There was 3 things they would always get on their plate. One would be green beans, macaroni and cheese, and fish. I don't know what they did that, and they wouldn't fill up with sweets because we never really allowed them to have a lot of sweets when they were little. And that's paid off with them now.
I love it.
But so fish. I've always enjoyed fish, and I'm really glad that it's something that I can have on a carnivore diet. So like I can get a nice ribeye, and sometimes I'll have a ribeye and a nice piece of whitefish or a nice piece of salmon together. And the one thing I do is with my fish, I always drain it. I always top it with vinegar, with malt vinegar. Vinegar's good on the diet. And then with my steak, I get the 4-pound blocks of butter from Costco and I clarify it. And then I will just dump a whole bunch of clarified butter on my steak regardless of what cut it is. That way I know I'm getting the fat, and it really, really makes the steak taste good too.
I love
always
it.
drench my steak and clarified.
I love it. I have a rancher at my local farmer's market that I can get suet, a beef suet from, and instead of butter, I soften a little bit of suet, and I do the same thing. Basically, I just add about 20, 30 grams of fat to my steak just to. It helps.
Yeah, I do that too. When I get my big blocks of meat and I cut them up, I always take the fat and I turn them into tallow. I mean, it'd be nice if I could do suet all the time, but I got this great fat rather than throwing it away, and I'm just not going to eat it. I turn it into tallow, and then I'll do all my meat frying sometimes in tallow, or like today what I'm having for dinner is I'm having a bunch of chunks of sirloin cooked in it. A friend of mine was living in Montana. We have a lot of big game. A friend of mine said, "Hey, you know, I got an elk, and I made some bone broth from the elk. You want the broth?"
Hell yeah!
I said, "You bet." So I'm having these sirloin chunks that I blanched with I fried up in beef tallow, and I'm letting them sit all day in this elk broth. So it'll be really, really good tonight for dinner.
All right, I've got a question for you.
Sure.
So let's say you motivated now. Someone's been watching this, and they got 100 pounds to lose, just like you did, and you're sitting on the other side of a year of losing 100 pounds, and they're going to start. And let's say they start for a couple of days, and they have a relapse, and they eat a bunch of sweets. Let's say sweets triggered them. What's your advice to get them? How to get them back on track and not go off into a bender? Do you have any?
Yes.
Talk to that person.
Okay. I'll be talking to myself in that case. That's easy. I had to learn to hate. I mean, viscerally hate where I was and the things that took me there. I had to hate it. And that's tough because it's easy to hate something. But the hard part about that is not to take that hate and transpose it to what somebody else is doing. That's one of the big problems that people who quit smoking have. As soon as they quit smoking, they automatically go on a rampage about how other people shouldn't smoke, because that's what it really takes ultimately at the end of the day to quit smoking. What for me, I had to learn to hate it and despise it, and to look at it with disdain, and just, it's not just something I don't want to do, it's something I hate. I despise it. Okay, and so I apply that to, I hate being 365 pounds. I hate it. I hate not breathing. I hate not being able to lie on my side at night and go to sleep because it was too painful.
Yes.
I hate not being able to go upstairs. I hate not running up the stairs. Like I said earlier. I despise it. With all my being, I despise it. And then I can analyze what it takes for me to get there, and I just have to say I despise it. I hate it. And that's okay. Hate is okay when done properly. And anger is okay when done properly. Anger is one of our most efficient forms of energy expulsion. I mean, if we're angry at something, we don't care. We go for it. It doesn't matter how hurt I get in the process of getting something done. And so anger is a good thing when properly channeled. And you just got to know when to turn it on and when to turn it off, and how to do it. And so there's always a level of frustration when you're approaching things in that way, because you see other people doing what you're doing. And like, I've got friends of mine, one of the hardest things about carnivore is trying to share it with people and trying to help them understand. Because I have a friend, they're pushing 400 pounds.
Oh, wow.
They're diabetic too. Luckily, I never got to the point where I had to start sticking needles in myself to compensate. But I was on the way there. I knew that was happening.
Yeah.
I knew it was just a question of time. But they do. They're on all the medication. They're not sleeping. They're going through everything that I went through, and that I've heard everybody else who gets that weight. The human body was not designed to be at that level ever. And so they said, but they noticed because my weight just went and started falling, and it was very, very noticeable. And if we get a chance, I want to show some kind of before and after pictures so you can see. It was shocking how fast it went, and my physical appearance. Because one of the cool things about carnivore was, unlike just this weight falling off me and I'm leaving and I'm sagging, my skin starting to heal and all this other stuff. So my elasticity is being replenished, and so the weight's coming off, and it's doing it in a better way to where I don't look like I've been in a prison camp.
right.
So this person comes in, they're just shocked and said, well, this is what I'm doing. And every time I pointed out what I did, there was an excuse coming out of their mouth as to why they couldn't do it.
Yep.
And it was just, finally I just looked at them and said, I guess priorities aren't they?
That's right. It's interesting going. So I'm interjecting the alcohol part of it, but it's the same whether it's alcohol or food. It's like, I want this,
right?
But I also want this. I basically want to be thin, but I want to eat as much ice cream as I want, whenever I want, how I want to do it. And it's like, you can't have both. You cannot, and until you have the maturity to say, I don't want to have hangovers, but I want to drink as much alcohol as I want to drink. It's like, you can't have both. You just, until you can get your mind, and I think so many people are clicking on different videos and different blogs or feeds or whatever, thinking, okay, who's going to tell me the secret of how to get what I want? And what they want is they want to have it all. It's like, you can't have it all. You've got to pick one.
And realistically, when you, again, going back, I don't want my whole dieting process to sound like it's built on anger and hatred, but it's actually built on joy and desire.
Okay.
Because once I got to where I wanted to go and started experiencing that, like being satiated. So, I love being satiated.
Mm-hmm.
I love this.
Yes.
This makes me not only feel good, because now I'm feeling full, which is a nice sensation in the body.
Yes.
It is really wonderful. But because there's a sense of joy, there's a sense of peace, I like those sensations. I'm a very patient, I'm a very peaceful individual. I can get riled up and can be motivated, and anger can get me moving. But it's once I start experiencing the results, that's what pulls me forward at that point in time. It's not the anger moves me forward, but the acquisition of the goal is what keeps me going forward. It becomes a pull thing after a while.
Yes.
And that's what I've learned.
I love it. So you wrote on one of my videos that the time on carnivore is correlated to your weight on carnivore is an indication of health, right? I thought that was an insightful point. Can you speak a little bit about that and what you mean by that?
You bet. Okay, so when I was talking earlier about the dieting cycle through the plateaus and everything, I learned that one of my best friends, my best tools on dieting, is the plateau.
Interesting. Okay.
And here's why. My body at 365 pounds breathed a certain way, it walked a certain way, it did everything it had to do to be able to go from point A to point B, to just exist. That body, and the body is an amazing thing. It develops really quickly something called a muscle memory. And I'm a piano player. I play piano. It's part of my gig. And one of the things you develop when you're learning the piece of music is you learn muscle memory. Part of the learning the piece process is to turn it into memory. Because once in memory, then you can actually express with it. But muscle memory is really, really important. Well, that person at 365, those muscle memories are not going to apply to me when I'm 200 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
I have to develop a whole different paradigm, a whole different set of memories for my body to behave that a 365 person doesn't have to deal with. So the plateau becomes my friend because it allows me to develop the things I need to make that body work.
Gotcha. Interesting.
That settling period is just wonderful because, I'd like to be at my one. I really wanted to be down to 160 this last year. I came 40 pounds shy of it. Because I was at 300 when I started my quest last year.
That's awesome.
That plateau area is where I can adjust. And if it takes 6 months, hey, that means that's 6 months of me being this new person and me not being this person at 365. That is absolutely wonderful. I like where I'm at. And sometimes when the problems is with the plateau now is, I kind of like where I'm at. Do I really want to move more down?
Yeah. Well, so when you were 300 pounds, when you started Carnivore and you were at 300 pounds, maybe you're not, I don't know. Basically, I project out. I'm like, okay, this is who I'm going to be when I'm going to be so much more awesome or whatever, and then now you've done it. Are is it different than what you thought? Like now that you're on the other side of 100 pounds, I don't know. It's like achieving that is a huge success. And now that you're there, is it what you thought it would be? I guess
it's like everything else in life. You have a picture of where you want to go, and you put in your mind what that result is going to be like when you finally start existing there. And life, the way it tends to work is, generally as a rule, only part of that comes true. But also what comes true is there are things you did not anticipate that are wonderful things that you get to. I forgot about how I could do this. My wife bought for me for Christmas a few years ago. She brought me a rocking chair from Cracker. She got one of those Cracker Barrel rocking chairs. It's a U.S. Navy rocking chair. I love my rocking chair, and I could never sit in it. It was painful to sit in. But now I discovered I can. Oh, my rocking chair. That's actually quite comfortable.
I love it.
My wife bought me that. Wasn't too keen on the $165 that went out the door for something that I couldn't use at the time, but it looked cool. But now I can actually use it. But that's a small thing. There are all sorts of little benefits that come, and one of the values of the plateau is it allows you to exist on a plane that allows you to discover the benefits that you didn't know were there and that you've been missing.
Gotcha.
And that you forgot about. So with regard to health, my weight, I'm losing weight, and I'm losing weight because my body's saying, you don't need this. And that's an indication of health. My body is getting healthier as I don't need the weight. And so that's in my head, that's now how I'm evaluating my own weight. It's not an indication of my failure or my success in terms of dieting. It's an indication of just exactly how healthy I'm getting again.
I love it.
And it seems to be consistent. I can actually count on that view better as a measure, because now my focus is on my health. My focus is, I want to ride another century. There's something we do in Montana I really want to do. It's a 125-mile bike ride. It starts out from Dillon, Montana, and it goes around the Priors or one of the mountain ranges over there, and it's an all-day ride. I want to do that. And because, when it comes to cycling, Montana is one of the greatest places in the country to do that.
Sure.
And the beauty up here is wonderful. And so I want to do it. I can't do that at 300 pounds. I'm going to be able to do that at 160.
Absolutely.
Because it's, but I want to do that. And so I need to have the health. It's not just the weight being off that's going to help me do that. It's the fact that my body is able to operate in a healthy manner. And a healthy manner, in my opinion, or at least in my experience at this point, is a healthy manner is causing me to reject a certain type of physical size.
I love it.
So that's what I meant by that.
That's great insight. We're coming up on about an hour. So two comments. One, I think it'd be best that if you emailed me a couple of pictures, and right when you talked about the your before and after, I'm going to overlay those pictures of you that you want me to share. Number two, if someone they're sitting there, they're like, I've got 100 pounds to lose. Give us 1, 2, 3. How do we start this? what's your best advice to someone?
Here's what I do. Because I give this advice. Because I've actually given this advice, and my surprisingly, my sister, siblings never listen to what you have to say, especially when you're the older brother. Right?
Yeah.
I'm the eldest of 5. And my sister, she called me and she says, I tried this carnivore diet thing that you said, and she's been taking my advice. I discovered Canberry and all these other people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she says, I've lost 20 pounds last month.
Wow.
You were right. That's great. She's the only person I know that's taking my advice, but I give the same advice. One, your internal thing is you got to be prepared to look inwardly and be honest with everything that's going on. That's the first mindset change you have to make. Secondly, you've got to read. There are certain books you must read that will give you an explanation in terms of why things are going on the way it is. Why is the most important question we can ask ourselves about anything. And if we can get a definitive answer to why, the why demonstrates something we can build off of. The answer to the why is something we can build on. Mm-hmm. And so everything fully clicked in my head when I read the Obesity Code.
Yes.
And if reading is an issue, Audible it.
Yes, that's fun.
It's an easy read, and it is probably one of the best books I've ever read. I've read lots and lots of diet books. It's the best book I read on the history of dieting and establishing some statistical measurement as a result of what people have taught over the last 200 years on dieting now. Because when we go, it's one of the most researched top topics we have is a human diet, and we can see all these effects in fact 1825, mm-hmm. right? 200 years ago. And we can see what happened when people implemented these things. And the one thing that is consistent is the carnivore, what they would call at one time, they remove everything. It was getting back to everything. Nobody's allergic to meat necessarily, unless you've got something to do with tick bite. So, if I were dropped off in the woods for somewhere and I had to eat something, there's one thing I can be sure of. If I could kill the animal before it killed me, I could live.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know what would happen to me if I picked it up off the ground and put it in my mouth. That's just basic life.
Yep.
And if we would apply that same type of idea to going to the grocery store, it might be a little bit more friendly to us.
Right.
So read. And I always recommend starting with the Obesity Code, then going to the Diabetes Code, because they're kind of like part 1 and part 2 of the same book.
Yeah.
And then start watching. Pay attention to the names that Dr. Fung talks about, because he brings a lot of great names. Start listening to these people. Start looking at videos on people who are turning things around. When you get a video that extols or is against the carnivore diet, pay very special attention to that, because you're probably going to hear all the memes. Mm-hmm. You're going to hear the stuff that's regurgitated over and over and over again. And you don't even know what's going to be regurgitated because you're going to come in contact with it because somebody else is going to regurgitate the same stuff. Mm-hmm. And so learn to hear those things. And then one of the things I appreciate, especially about Ken Berry and Sean Baker as well, I really like Sean Baker, he deals with those. They deal with those memes, and they give reasonable explanations. So get your head full with knowledge and start building a foundation, and then start experimenting. Mm-hmm. And see where you go. And that's what I had to do. It took a long time. That whole dieting thing, it was almost 30 years worth of work to get to the place to where I could say, I cracked the nut on this one. Mm-hmm. I did crack the nut. And but it took about 30 years to do. Wow. And the key to patience isn't emotion. Patience is understanding that eventually something's going to happen if you just wait for it.
Yes. Yeah.
If I sow seed, eventually it's going to grow. And if I continue moving forward, and I'm going to learn, I'm going to acquire knowledge, and then stick it out. But you got to keep. And then the last thing is, make sure you are completely surrounding yourself when you can with the people who are experiencing the success you want.
Yep.
And if you can't do that, you're going to feel alone. You're going to feel isolated. and you're going to go, at some point in time, you're just going to throw up your hands and go, I don't know if this is worth it, because I'm just like an island in a sea of 7 billion people.
Yep, I'm making notes on a card to put in the show notes, so to speak. That's great advice. So be honest with yourself, read books, experiment, and then surround yourself with people. Build yourself a community.
Right, build yourself and get involved.
Yeah.
And then help people where you can. And, like I said, I still have a hard time dealing with the discouragement of wanting to help people. I mean, I lost my sister I got 3 sisters. I lost one of them last year due to COVID. She was way overweight. And I wish I could have discovered this before, because I could have saved her life. And my sister and I, we were Irish twins, so we grew up together.
Yeah.
We were, same side of this, different sides of the same coin, and I really miss her. And if I could have just had this then, if I could have just helped her with this.
Yes.
I still have my other half.
I think about. I don't think us. And I'm going to say us, because as the making of this video, I'm 251 on a goal of being the same. I'm 5'9", I'm 5'9.5".
Right.
I went down a half a pound. I want to be 165, and I want to be strong, and all the rest. Right? I'm 52 years old or 54 years old. But I don't think we think about it. People that are obese, that you're walking around with a big open wound, and if you really saw it, like you were saying about your sister, if you could see it through the lens of a wound, you would try to heal yourself. But we just allow the wound to fester instead of actually trying to heal it. And
the problem is we live in a society that's encouraging the festering.
Yeah, they're saying it's okay. You're okay.
And I walk. One of the things my wife and I we're on this together.
That's great.
She's semi-carnivore. She's kind of a dirty carnivore. She does more keto than I do, and that's fine.
A few avocados every once in a while is not going to kill you.
Yeah, she likes her broccoli and cheese too. Yeah. And that's okay. I can't do it, but that's fine.
Right.
And but one of the things we do together is we go mall walking, and we do 5 laps in our mall, which is a little over 2 miles. We do that every day. It is something we set aside, and it's one of the things we look forward to every day. And it's not, it's not resistance training. It's not, it's not anaerobic. It's not aerobic. It's not any of that. My cycling is that, but when I can have the weather to do so. Like I said, I live in Montana. I'm limited. And so I do not ride my bike at 30 below. I've never gotten into it. So, but we go mall walking, and it's really cool because the weather can be what the weather is, and we still get a good day, and we enjoy, and we talk about it. We do it at the end of the day, after the end of work day, and we talk about our day, and we talk about the things married people need to talk about to continue to move on and move forward with kids and all this stuff. We're getting our first grandchild in June, and this is a whole new thing.
Congratulations.
And so, having adult kids I'm finding is a little more difficult than raising toddlers, because it's like I can't make their decisions for them anymore, but I want to, but they're just not figuring it out. Anyway, so, but it's good for us, and so those kinds of things, those are the wonderful rewards. Now I couldn't do that. We do 5 laps, a little over like 2.25 miles. And I couldn't do that at 365. I couldn't barely do it at 300. And when we started, we were doing 3 laps a day when we started, and we're planning to push it to 6 this year.
Wow.
And she's losing her weight, and she's, it's all sorts of wonderful things that have occurred as a result of us getting back to where we've always wanted to be. But like I said, the benefits, it was only going back to helping people now. If my physical appearance in conjunction with my attitude isn't sufficient to encourage, I'm lost to begin with.
Yes.
If that isn't enough, if you know me, and you know what kind of person I am, I tend to be very well driven, and I accomplish big goals. I'm a big thinker. And if I can't, I'm always moving on something. And if you know that about me, and you know that I actually accomplish the goals I tend to set, and you don't like what it is I have to do to set the goal, then the problem's not with me, and I have to get that in my head. The problem is really with you, and I can't fix you. I can lead the horse to water. I realize the old paradigm, or the old, proverb, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. There's more wisdom there than it sounds.
Yeah.
And it breaks, honestly, with my friend, it breaks my heart.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why do you have to stick to yourself? Why do you want to be, because the first excuse out of their mouth was, well, I don't like to read. And I'm thinking to myself, why on earth would you want to be a pincushion because you don't want to read?
Yeah.
That makes no sense to me.
People, probably what they say and what they mean, there's probably a lot of fear there, and all the rest, right? And I think that if I had to add on to your 4, is that if someone really has 100 pounds to lose, there's a lot of because carnivore is becoming more popular. There's a lot of discussion on, can I have this? Can I have that? As far as how much carbohydrate to reintroduce or whatever the case may be, it might take to what I want to speak to them, to someone who might be watching, is when you're 100 pounds overweight, you've got to start with the basics. Eliminate everything. Heal yourself. Get to a health. Maybe when you're 165 or your healthy weight, maybe you can introduce some broccoli again. Maybe, but you got to get there. You got to get pretty hardcore on the diet. That would be my advice. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, you do. And then there are certain things I want to reintroduce.
Mm-hmm.
One is I love apples.
Mm-hmm.
I just love apples. But if I reintroduce apples, it's going to be because I am at my weight. I am not seeing radical fluctuations. I'm not having the battles I would have, and I'm going to do basically sour apples. Apples as sour as possible, Granny Smith's. And I would like to introduce a little bit more honey, because honey does taste good, and honey. There's some really, really positive values of honey, especially when it comes to the immune system.
Absolutely.
If you eat local honey, right? And so I was watching an episode of The Chosen the other night, and the character playing Jesus is getting a snack, and he's dipping apples in honey, going, that sounds good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I've never heard of people dipping apples in honey. I'm looking forward to trying that, but I'm not going to do it today. I'm going to do it when I'm ready to start doing that stuff.
When you're out on a 100-mile bike ride, and an apple and a little bit of honey at once, and you're weighing 165, it probably would be a different story.
Yeah, it will be, and I'm looking forward to that, and that will be. But because I've taken the time and I've gotten the self-control back, that is the key issue of all of it.
Yes.
Is you've got to have the self-control. You've got to be able to be the boss of your body.
Yes.
And not let it tell you what to do.
Yes, absolutely right. Well, Timothy, any closing words before we wrap up? I mean, that was a good statement right there.
Right. No, I appreciate it, Terry. I really do.
Good.
I want to tell people what's going on because it's so awesome. Yet, there's some really great people in the carnivore community. I just let them speak. But, this is my little small opportunity to kind of offer up my 2 cents worth. And I appreciate the opportunity you've given me to make it happen.
How about this?
Really do.
Absolutely. How about this? I consider you a friend now, and what about maybe in March as you're marching towards and you're getting more closer to spring, maybe we'll jump on the video like this again and post and give people a little bit of a refresh. I'm happy to post something else for you, and so you can kind of keep your story out there, and we could and maybe. I can give you a little report back of how I'm doing because I've been. Yeah, this is the.
Talk about me all the time.
No, this is your form. This is my year that I'm going to get it done. Though I'm getting it. I'm getting below 200, so I'm going to catch up to you as fast as I can.
Go for it. Go for it. Let's make it a race.
Let's do it. Well, not maybe a race, but
competition's good, right?
Yeah. I have a coach. Her name is Sabine, who is my strength coach because I do some bar work and things like that. But she was reflecting. I make her accountability videos because she lives in California, and she's been on me about my self-talk that I'm very. Going back to the honesty that when I self-talk, I'm projecting out into the future, and I'm not happy with who I am. I'm just negative on myself, way negative on myself.
Right. Self-talk is critical, and one of the things I've had to incorporate, because I've had the same issue. One of the things I've had to incorporate into my self-talk is a continual reminder of my successes.
Good
So
point.
rather than focusing at 100% entirely on my failures or the negative connotation, whatever it is I'm dealing with, I have to remind myself I can win this because I have done this before.
I have done this before.
Teaching myself how to write, the two most illuminating things that has happened to me over the span of my life is, one, quitting smoking and doing it cold turkey. And the other one is my first training for my first century on a bicycle. Because that's like training for a marathon.
Oh, absolutely.
And I started where I thought I could be, and my impression of where I needed to start was completely wrong. I almost end up killing myself because I overtrained initially and still wasn't able to ride the century because I so hurt myself, and I had to go back and systematically learn how to do these things.
Wow.
So that established, between those two things together, the idea that I could do the hard thing even though I didn't think I could. And then learning that there is a system by which you can do the hard thing, which is what comes from century riding, just taking those two things and applying it back to here. And it got me through 9 years of college. It got me through that whole thing. It got me through all the stuff. Got me through this. It's got me through learning how to be a dad. My dad was a jazz musician, and I did not learn how to be a good dad from my dad. I'm sure my kids are absolutely ecstatic that I didn't turn out to be the dad like my dad was. My dad and I were great friends, but we agreed that when it came to parental skills, he was not the source of information I should draw from.
Sure.
Other than what not to do.
Sure.
But those, taking those things and systematically applying that there is this way, if you put the right things in place, you can get to where you got to go. And self-talk is critical, but you have to remind yourself of your successes. You have to do that as much as your trials. And you have to learn to hate the things you don't want and love the things that you have to really become so bipolar, really. I hate this and I love this. And there can be no middle ground. The only thing sticking your head in the sand is going to do is suffocate you. And that's the philosophy you have to have.
I love it.
Standing in the middle of the road is only going to get you hit by a car.
I would agree. Timothy, thank you so much for the time, my friend. We're going to do this again if you're up for it.
Yeah, I am. Whenever you want, I'll be more than happy to chat. And I really hope some people can benefit from this because, like I said, even though I'm a big techie guy and it's what I do when it comes to distribute things on the internet, I'm just not that.
But if I can help. All in good time. If I can help you out on that one of these days, I will do that. So
thank you, Terry.
You got it, Timothy. I'm going to stop the recording now.